man to put all their human sacrifice offering. They had human cages made out of wicker where they could put the rest of it. But what would happen, the wicker man would eventually be engulfed in flames. And this is where and what would happen to those people who was offered up as a human sacrifice on the nights of Samhain. This was their eventual fate. And what troubles me greatly today, is that in the Nevada desert, since the year 2000, an annual event has been going on. It's known as the Burning Man. It's still the Wicker Man. What they are doing, ladies and gentlemen, these pagans from across the nation are coming together once a year on particular dates and setting up the old occult practices. One of those practices is that of the Wicker Man. Now, no one, gratefully, has been offered up as a human sacrifice offering, at least not to my knowledge. But it really gives me cause for great concern that these events are going on. Right here, as we're saying, this is from the New York Times. This is, I believe, September 17th. This is the year 2000, in which the revival of the Burning Man, or the Wicker Man, has begun. You will notice all it is, it's the same practice, it's just, a different rendition of that human effigy. And yes, it does give me cause for concern. Because, among other things, where these people are gathering, the ancient animal, the totem animal for Nimrod, the golden cow, has also been reconstructed. This is the same creature that the Israelites had fallen down and worshipped at the bottom of the mountain of Sinai when Moses had vanished. And Aaron was forced to make a golden cow for the people to worship. During the nights of Samhain, even to this very day, the belief is that the veils that separate the spiritual world from the physical world are at their thinnest, and that they can, during these days, these nights, departed souls can come and visit their loved ones. Now, this is only done once you light the great bonfires, or what's known as the bale fires. Once these bale fires are lit, they act as a beacon to those departed souls in the spiritual realm for them to focus on. This will allow them to cross over and enter into our world. But the problem here is no one and nothing says that these spirits that are crossing over are going to be benevolent or good spirits. Nothing guarantees that. So what the Druids came up with, they first would devise these headgear and masks that was absolutely horrifying. They looked like demonic creatures, and they painted these symbols and other things on their robes. And all these things were supposed to keep those malevolent or bad spirits in check. And of course, we have those things nowadays. This is, of course, where the origin of the Halloween costume comes into play. Halloween is nothing but the recreation of the worship of Samhain, the Celtic lord of the dead, on his high and holy days. When we take a look at Halloween for what it is, well, kids are dressed up in these costumes, so are grown-ups. They go out trick-or-treating, don't they? And they demand a sacrifice. They get candy for it. Afterwards, well, they go home, and there will be these huge festivals like the Druids were doing, and they will be playing the same game, except we call it bobbing for apples. Instead of, throwing it into a cauldron that's boiling at 212 degrees, we'll put it into a cauldron or into some other vat or something with cold water and have the people dip their heads in it and get it that way. It's the same thing, though. And so the practice of bobbing for apples still continue on today, except in a much easier format, if you would. But these things are still going on. Some people will say, oh, well, none of this really goes on anymore and that it's harmless and all this. Well, you see, this one photo that I brought is a photo of Stonehenge. Now, what most people don't realize is that this Stonehenge is in an area of Washington State known as Maryhill. This, believe it or not, had been built back in the 1900s, the early past, to honor those people who died during World War I because they fought in Europe. Well, personally speaking, I don't think I would want that as my own memorial because it's nothing but the ancient reconstruction of a site where human sacrifice had been practiced. To this very day, Christians will try to counterfeit Halloween by having what's known as harvest festivals. This is absolutely reprehensible. All we're doing is just giving it another name because people are still bringing carved jack-o'-lanterns. They're still giving out trick-or-treats, candies, and other things. They're still playing bobbing for apples, and I know of many of those places and Christian churches now that are still having Halloween parties at the churches where people come in these costumes. I know, I've seen it myself. We have got to make a decision one way or the other, my brothers and sisters. It's time we call it a halt to all this and say either I am going to serve Jesus Christ all the way, and that doesn't mean you're not going to make a mistake or that you're not going to sin. It doesn't mean you end up perfect. But what it does mean is you're going to finally get out there and do something for the Lord, or you're just going to stay on this side and do nothing. Remember, the 3rd chapter of the book of Revelation talks about the Laodicean church age where most of the Christians will not be able to be used of God because they're lukewarm. They are literally fence walkers. They will not commit to the left or to the right. They are lukewarm. God cannot use them. They are no good to Him. So if you want to be used of God, you want to claim you want God's blessing, you claim you're a child of God, then you better do something while we still can, because I guarantee you right now, it is coming close to the end of history. It's coming close to where the Antichrist is going to arrive, and that there is indeed going to be great tribulation upon the face of the earth. And it is up to you right now to decide one way or the other. Are you going to choose God one way or the other, or are you just going to get out of the way of those who will? Because I tell you right now, history, as I just stated, is coming to a close, and it is going to be up to you to make a decision one way or the other. Do you stay on the sidelines, or do you, as a Christian, a born-again, sold-out servant of God, make a stand? The next occult holiday that we're going to look at is called Valentine's Day. Now, what could be so wrong about having a day set aside for lovers, people who want to send hearts and flowers and candies to people they love and care about? Well, once you understand the origins of Valentine's Day, I think you'll think twice about this holiday. Remember, traditionally it is celebrated on February 14th, which is 13 days away from the human night sacrifice known as Imbolg. Now, during this time, in the early parts, Valentine's Day was basically to honor the first family of the occult. And that was Semiramis, Tammuz, and of course the reincarnation of Nimrod, known as Tammuz. Now this is the infamous statue known as the Venus de Milo. Okay, Venus was a fertility goddess. She was also depicted as a moon goddess. This is one of the many depictions of Semiramis, just in a different culture. It's as I said before, nothing about the occult had changed, and nothing about the practice. The only thing that changed were the names because of the different cultures and their language. Now, the son, if you remember, of Semiramis was Tammuz. But he has now become Cupid. Cupid, as you can see, according to the stories, was a cute little cherub boy who would go around shooting arrows at people and making them fall in love. Okay? And the father and the husband here would have been Jupiter. Jupiter was the god of the sky and thunder. He was supposed to be the head honcho. And, of course, this would have been the Roman version of Zeus. Venus would have been the Roman version of, Hera. And as we go along, you're going to find out that Cupid also had a counterpart. Now this here would be the ancient picture of Venus and Amor. Amor is, of course, where we get the word love from. But this would be Venus and her son Amor. But counterculturally now, Cupid became identified with Eros. Eros is one of the Greek words, I should say, for love. You will notice this cherub, his wings are formed in the shape of a heart. And this is where part of the belief of Valentine's Day comes from, because remember, Valentine's Day is supposed to be for lovers. It was always believed that the seat of everyone's emotions lied in their hearts. So the heart was the target of love, and that's why this Eros here, that is why his wings are in the shape of a heart, because it is supposed to be the seat of all emotions, and this was supposed to be the area, the human heart, that he could affect with his arrows. And of course, here's one of those cute little drawings we find of Valentine's Day. Now, if you were a faithful follower during what we now call Valentine's Day, you would go to the temples, just like the ones in Babylon during this time of the year, and you would offer up candies or sweet pastries or spring flowers. And it had to be spring flowers if you were going to bring flowers, because the goddess, who has been asleep in the earth now, once the stag god took over during the nights of Samhain, once he took over, the spring goddess basically went into the earth and hibernated. And now, during this time of the year, she's beginning to reawaken. She's coming back. And so one of the offerings you would bring her was spring flowers, if you could find them. And this basically is where you get Valentine's Day for. Yeah, you may believe it's a simple enough day in which we honor lovers and all this, but as you can see, it's really nothing more than an honoring of the first family of the occult world, that being Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. All we're doing is honoring and practicing the cycle of the wheel of life, to where Semiramis is coming back, and we're offering all these wonderful gifts to her. This has nothing to do, ladies and gentlemen, with anything that is good and moral. This is nothing but a sick, twisted practice that's been going on in the occult world for more than 5,000 years. And it's really up to us, as Christians, to make a stand, to make a choice, to say, I am not going to practice this anymore. This is not godly. This is not biblical. This has nothing to do